So the first thing you'll learn about government is we have a lot of acronyms, right? GCCMA, ICMA, all of those. We're like engineers in transportation. They have a lot of acronyms as well. So I'm going to get my notes here. But it's a pleasure to be here with you, particularly I know I'm the caboose on the series. This is an evening session. I know the others have been during the daytime, so I know that you had choices. You could have probably been a whole lot of other places besides here. So it's extra special for me because, one, you're here. Two, this is home for me. I didn't get to be in a really cool space like this, so I'm honored to be in this space because it's an incredible space to be in speaking. I can only imagine what an incredible space it is to learn in. Of course, when I was here about 108 years ago, the business school was over on the hill, and the highlight of the day was a Mama Goldberg's turkey sandwich and Pac-Man. Many of you probably don't even know what Pac-Man is. So I'm kind of tethered with some wiring, so if things start falling out, I don't have like a pacemaker or anything going awry. It's just Sean's got me tethered with a microphone. So to kind of give me an idea who's in the room, how many are students here? How many are graduate students? How many of you want to go into local government? Every hand in here should go up. So one of my missions tonight is to convert you all, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about government. So the first myth buster I want to start with, and Sean, if I start roaming too far away from the microphone, let me know. If you can't hear me, just raise your hand. I'm pretty big mouth, so it shouldn't be a problem. But is that federal government and state government and local government are all alike. Not true. Not true. Local government is nothing like the federal government, so let's go ahead and set that aside because we could be here like 3 weeks talking about the issues with federal government. And not like state government at all, because local government is close to the people. It's the place where you're closest to the people that are using the services that a city or a county provides. And it's the closest place you get to see the results of what your hands have been in. So it's one of the most rewarding careers that I can imagine. Now, for most people, I don't think as a kid they wake up and go, oh, I'm going to work for a city or a county. I sure didn't wake up and go, oh, I want to be a city administrator, which is also known by another name as city manager. I didn't think that. I wanted to be a scientist, and we'll talk about that later, how that went awry. But anyway, I don't think that happens. And it's really driven home more and more as we see people are not going into the public arena anymore. We're having a really hard time recruiting, so I'm going to talk to Kate and get some ideas about how to recruit, because it's becoming increasingly hard for us, because most people kind of fall into it, and it's really hard to explain it. It's easy if you're a fireman or a policeman or a doctor or a lawyer or a professor. People pretty much know what you do. If you're a city manager, and particularly explaining to kids, they don't know what that is. And if you say, well, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of a city that has 8 departments, 600 people, 600 employees, 95,000 citizens, and $100 million budget, that doesn't mean anything. As I drove around, I got here a little early. I'm originally from Columbus, grew up close to the St. Francis Hospital. I was able to ride around and just see the growth of this campus, which is phenomenal, and the spaces and places that students have to learn now. And the residential housing, student housing, is just incredible. And it reminded me how fortunate I was as a kid to grow up in a community that had a 4-year college. I didn't appreciate it then. I didn't appreciate the things like health care and things. And education and health care are the lifeblood of a community, and that's what helps communities prosper. And I didn't really have an appreciation for that, probably like I should have, and that's one of the things that I was reminded. And in the work that I do with cities, that's one of the first things that we take a look at, is what amenities do they have? What economic drivers do they have in those communities? Do they have a hospital? What's their school system like? Because when people are thinking about locating in a city, what are they looking for? If you're going to relocate, tell me, what are you looking for? Schools, right, if you got kids. Recreation, parks, right. You want to get out and recreate. What else? Healthcare, maybe? find a doctor, all of those things. So those are the things that we look at. And if you look at some of the small cities across Georgia that are prospering now that were not prospering before, they have reinvented themselves. They have revitalized their downtown. So people are coming back to downtown. Or before there was the flight from downtowns, and there's all kinds of studies and things about that, and it's phenomenal to watch it. And look at Columbus, Georgia. Did anybody here grow up in Columbus? So look at the changes in downtown, right? When I was growing up about 108 years ago, as I said, in downtown, you didn't go downtown. The only thing you went downtown for was for Curvin's department store, where I could not wait until I could get 10 years old till I could get my ears pierced there. So that was the big thing. There were no restaurants. You didn't go down there. There was no performing arts center. There was no Columbus State University down there. So it's really incredible the opportunities that the reinvestment in communities that it provides. And that's why everybody in here needs to go into local government for your profession, because you get to be a part of that. And you're like, well, I'm an accountant. Yes, we need accountants to count that tax money. Well, I'm going to be an engineer. Fine. We got to build buildings. We got to build roads. Well, I'm in marketing. Well, we have to sell things. We have to sell and market our city. So there's a job for everybody in here. I promise you. And we're going to find you one before maybe not before I leave, but we're going to find you one. So who in here has mapped out their professional career? Whether you're old or younger, you got it all mapped out. Throw that map away. Throw it away. Throw it away. Because I can promise you one thing. It will not work out the way you think it will. Nobody's ever does. And what I learned is that in some points in my life, I have been so focused, for lack of a better word, on the end game of where I knew I was going and what I needed to do to get there, that I missed opportunities along the way. I missed some really good opportunities. Now, I have been very, very blessed to have opportunities present themselves, but what if I had gone down that path? And I was so focused over here that I missed those opportunities. That's not to say not to have goals. If you don't have goals, then you might as well just go back to bed. Because you have to know where you're going. And that's why I like this slide. And don't you like how the blue all blends in? That's great. I didn't plan that. But anyway, so, I think we need to be very clear about where we're going. You got to know. So where do you want to go? What's your plan? What's your end game?
To be a business consultant.
Okay.
Using an industrial organizational psychology degree, or master's.
That's a very good one. A lot of people in local government, particularly elected officials, need some help psychology-wise. You could probably help them. A lot of them are mixed up. So I think it's important to be, that was a joke. If there are any elected officials in the room, my apologies. It's important to be very clear about what you're going, where you're going, but it's important to be very flexible about the way that you get there. So have you ever heard, there's 100 ways to skin a cat? Well, that's very true. So sometimes I think we get, too hung up on that. Oops. So this is kind of my journey. So I want to tell you a little about my journey. I want to tell you a little about the work that I do with cities, and I want to tell you a little about the future of work with cities. So who in here is right now working in your dream job? Who's got your dream job? What is that, sir?
I'm an Army guy. Got a paint company over in Fort Dix.
Okay. I can see where that would be a dream job. Anybody else? Anybody know what you think your dream job is?
I'm in mine now. I own bricks and minifigs in the landing. We deal with Lego products and get to play with kids all day.
That is great. And they have great holiday decorations there, by the way. Or they used to. I haven't been there in a while. Okay. So, many people know early on what they want to do. And if you know that and that's your passion, that's fine. But it's okay, I think, not to know. I'm still not real sure what I'm supposed to be when I grow up. I know I'm supposed to be in public service, but where that might lead me, I really don't know. And like I said, sometimes, people who get into public service, we kind of fall into it. We don't wake up one day and say that's what we want to be, but it's one of the most rewarding careers, in my opinion, that one can have. So I told you I wanted to be a scientist, and that started because I got this cute little chemistry set one Christmas, and I about blew up the garage with it, so that was pretty much the end of that. And anybody here graduate from Hardaway High School? Go Hawks. So I graduated from Hardaway High School, and at the time I thought I wanted to do something in business, but really wasn't sure. I was fortunate enough to get to participate in the joint enrollment program, so when I was a senior in high school, I could come to, back then, Columbus College and take courses so that it accelerated me into college. And so I thought that I wanted to maybe go into accounting, so no disrespect to any accounting professor. But I took the accounting course and I thought, I cannot do this for a living. And I think the professor was most ecstatic when I withdrew from said class. But I liked numbers. I liked money. I liked counting it. So one of my first jobs, there we go, sorry, my bad, was at Kmart on Macon Road. I was a cashier. And the manager decided that she thought, well, I might be a candidate to go into their management trainee program. And so she encouraged me not to continue my studies at Columbus College, because why would I do that? I could go into the management training program and I could be a manager at Kmart. I thought that was a great idea. So I went home. I announced to my parents that when I graduated in June that year that I was going to go be a manager at Kmart, and I didn't need to go to college because that wasn't important. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. My father graduated from a 2-year technical college in Texas, and my mother graduated from high school but did not go to college. And of course, that didn't happen, luckily for me. But that was kind of the thought process at that time. And then I got a job at Trust Company Bank on Macon Road as a teller. And back then, it was open 24 hours a day. So I worked at night because I went to school here. So after my class, and back then we were on the quarter system. Nobody in here has probably been on the quarter system, the semester system. But anyway. And so I got all the gas stations, nightclub, the Chickasaw Club, the liquor stores, all that money. And I thought, this is really cool. I like counting it. I like balancing that. So I knew then, okay, I must be on the right track. And those were part-time jobs. And then, so I had graduated from high school. And, along the way, I've had several course corrections. One of them was I got married a year after I was out of high school. And probably not the best decision that I made. So I was the most probably untraditional or non-traditional student in that I didn't go to school all day. I went to school at night. I worked full time. I was a very young person, married, and I pretty much didn't have a clue. And I got a job at Aflac on Winton Road, and I worked in agents accounting on the 16th floor. And back then everything was printed. There was no electronic anything. And so the agents would have statements, their monthly statements of the business that they had done, the insurance policies that they had sold. And they would come in at the first of the month, and it would be a room literally this big, and it would be stacked with all of those carbon copies of those statements, and the alphabet was broken up to between 3 of us, and I had like O through Z or something. And so we'd have to file those things. And so I figured out pretty quick that I probably didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, but I still got to see numbers, and I got to be part of a numbers, so I knew, okay, I'm still on the right track. I'm still going to school. And then I got the brilliant epiphany that why do I need to take art history? Like, what has that got to do with me doing financial work or business work? And I don't want to take that marketing class. I'm not selling anything. Like, I hate to sell. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to sell Girl Scout cookies. I don't want to ask anybody to buy anything. Is anybody like that in this room? I just like, don't. I'll buy your kids Christmas paper and all that, but I'm not going to ask you that. And so I couldn't figure out why I needed to take this marketing class or art history. And little did I know then that those were very important classes. One, because, and you've heard this probably your whole life about, it rounds you out, you're well-rounded. But what I didn't know is particularly in marketing, is that I would have to sell things. As a city administrator, I have to sell ideas. I have to get buy-in. I have to negotiate with people and contracts and all the things that work with that in marketing. And I have to know how the supply and demand works. What are citizens demanding? How are we providing that? What are all those costs? And all of that works together. I didn't know that then. I know that now. But I had the brilliant idea that, see, I needed to cut all that out because I didn't need, and what did I need? Literature. What in the world could literature do for me? So I announced to my parents at that time that I was going to quit and I was going to Columbus Technical Institute because they have a business certificate. Now it's Columbus Technical College. Little did I know then I'd wind up being their finance director one day. But so I left Columbus College and I went there and took a couple of business courses and found out really quickly that the people at Columbus Tech were not of the same mindset of where they might be going. Their circumstances were different. Many of them had kids, were working different kinds of jobs that I was interested in. So after a couple of quarters there, I came back to Columbus College. And then after Aflac, I had the opportunity to go to work for the Phoenix City School District in Phoenix City, Alabama. At the time, there were 11 schools in the school system. I started out in payroll and wound up as their finance director. And probably that's one of the first lessons that I learned from a mentor. At the time, I didn't know he was a mentor. But I made a decision because, you know, when you're that young, you know everything, right? So there were some budget cuts that were going to happen within the school district that year for the budget, and I worked in what's called the superintendent's office or the central office. So I'd gotten my information together for the budget that I was responsible for. The superintendent came in one afternoon, told me to get some information ready for the high school, have it ready for the principal. He needed it. And I thought, well, I have to get my budget done, so I'll go ahead and get mine done, and then I'll come in early and get his done the next morning. So I did that, and the next morning when I came in, I heard this big boom of him call me across the hall, and I went into his office, and I thought he was like, you know, very ancient at that time. He was probably only in his 50s, but he was quite intimidating because he had a very loud voice. He asked me about the information, and I said, oh yeah, I have it for the principal. This morning, you know, he can come and get it. And so he told me to go to the janitor's closet and get a mop bucket. I thought, he has lost his cotton picking mind. He told me to fill the mop bucket halfway full. Went and filled it. That's my boss. Came back in his plush superintendent's office with all the nice carpet and the cherry wood, and he told me to sit in the chair and put the bucket in my lap. So I did that. Still, I'm thinking he is crazy. I don't know what's going on. Told me to roll my sleeve up, put my hand down in the bucket, and pull it out. I did that. Water's dripping on the floor. He didn't say, here's a handkerchief, here's a Kleenex, here's anything. He said, at the time, my last name was Hall, he said, Miss Hall, look down in that bucket. He said, do you see a hole? I said, no, sir. He said, there won't be a hole in this organization when you leave either. So what I failed to understand is never underestimate the value of information or why you're being asked to do something, because sometimes it's not for you to know. Because the reason that I needed to get the information ready the day before is because that principal had to cut teachers' positions. And he needed the night to marinate on it and study on it. But I knew better. So that was one of the first lessons that I learned of the importance of really that I probably don't know best in my journey, and sometimes other people along the way know better than I. So I left the Phoenix City Board of Education after about 5 or 6 years, went to Columbus Technical Institute at the time as their Director of Financial Operations, and worked there in that arena with financial aid and the general financial statements, accounting, all those things that go along with that. And then I got the opportunity to go to work for the City of Columbus. So all these were quasi-governmental in that the education arena, but they weren't government, if you will, until I went to work for the Columbus Consolidated Government. And I started as a financial analyst doing what financial analysts do, and then had a number of opportunities along the way, and was when I left for a number of years their finance director before I got the opportunity to go to the City of Roswell. And I went to the City of Roswell in 2003 as a deputy city administrator, and then 3 years later the then city administrator left, And I had the opportunity to be appointed as a city administrator and stayed there for 10 years before I went to the Georgia Municipal Association, where I am now. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the Georgia Municipal Association in a little while. But the Georgia Municipal Association serves cities across Georgia, and we are actually a nonprofit organization. Every state except Hawaii has a municipal association, so we all at my office want to go on a field trip to Hawaii to convince them that they should have a municipal association. We thought that'd be a great trip, but our boss has not approved that yet. But we provide training for them, policies, procedures, newly elected officials training, any issue that's going on in the city that they need resources and help with. That's what we provide. So that's what I get to do on a day-to-day basis for cities. So on the left is the textbook version of goal setting and reaching your goals and success. On the right, in my opinion, is the reality. So I don't think anybody sets a goal and then they just immediately get it. It's a straight line getting there. There's lots of twists and turns, and sometimes you have to adjust the goal along the way. Sometimes you have to have a course correction in that the goal is not working out, or maybe you decide that's not your goal at all. There's nothing wrong with that. You set a goal and go, you know what? I don't think that's really what I aspire to do. That's not really what I'm interested in doing. I want to do something else. So I think it's important at the end of the day about perseverance. I think it's important to have people to help you. If you want to call it mentors, coaches, whatever that may be. And sometimes those people don't even know they're your mentor or coach, but you're looking to them for that guidance or advice. It could be a family member. It could be anybody. How many in here have a mentor? Have somebody that you look up to? Keep that person, covet that person. I believe people are put in our lives for a reason. Some stay a season, some stay a lifetime. But it's very important, just like in the private sector. They have what? A board of directors, right? Sets their policy, sets their strategy. They're accountable to the stockholders. I think it's important to have your own personal board of directors. Those people that they're not yes men and women. They're people who will challenge you when you stray from your values. They will challenge your assumptions. They will tell you when you're doing good. They'll tell you when you're doing bad. They're the people that will celebrate your successes, and they will also be there to help you if you fail or when you fail and need to have a course correction. I believe that's really, really important. I also believe it's important for you to be careful about who you spend your time with, because time is precious. You may not think it is now, but it is so precious, and there will never be enough hours in the day to achieve everything you hope to achieve in your life. It's just not possible. If I could add 24 hours to every day, I would do it. So with that being said, you know, we don't always get to pick our family, right? Some of us may pick other family members if we had the choice. So it has been said, I have no statistical backup for this, there's no case study, there's anything, but I've read it on numerous occasions, and that we are all the average of the people that we spend the most time with. So think about the 3 to 5 people that you spend the most time with. You are the average of those people. So if you want to up your average, then choose some different people to bring into that mix. You don't get to get rid of your parents and your siblings and all of that, but bring some other people. Bring some diversity into that mix. People who don't look like you, act like you, talk like you, come from the same place you do, who aren't interested in the same things that you are. Cities are doing something now called civic dinners. Has anybody heard of civic dinners? It's the coolest thing. It's just started. The Atlanta Regional Commission is doing it. But I hope Columbus will do it. I'm going to talk to the city manager in Columbus about it. But it is small groups of 6 to 10 people, and they host a dinner. Somebody hosts a dinner at their house or out somewhere, and you invite people that you would normally not invite to dinner. Wouldn't normally go to dinner. And there's 3 topics that we ask people to talk about. We ask people to talk about innovation in cities. We ask people to talk about traffic, transportation. That's a big, big, big thing in the metro Atlanta area. Everybody gripes about it, but not everybody wants to be part of the solution. So we ask them to talk about that. Then we asked them to talk about the changing demographics and dynamics of society in general. And then we asked them to give the feedback. And so we're going to compile all that feedback after a year and see what we come up with to make sure that cities and the leadership are doing what they need to do to make sure that we are putting ourselves in the right space to accomplish those things that people are telling us that are important. Not that the leaders dictate to people about what's important, but what truly people are saying, what you are saying, because you are part of a community no matter where you live. It's very important to be involved in that. One of the people that got put in my path along the way is someone who has a very close connection to this university, and it is Carmen Caveza. And the day he became my boss at the City of Columbus, I consider to be one of the luckiest days of my life. Now, if you know him from the Cunningham Center, he's a retired 3-star general. So that's pretty intimidating, right? So I was a finance director, and he came to work. You know, he'd already done everything with the Olympics, so the name was out there. We already knew him from the Olympics. And he called a staff meeting, and we were used to having our staff meetings like at 8:30-ish. So our first staff meeting was at 7 promptly. And people soon learned that if you didn't make it on time, you were locked out of the staff meeting. So if you ever went to the door and you were late, now I never was, but coworkers of mine were. And so you had to go to somebody else to find out what your assignment was or what went on in the meetings. That really only ever happened once to people. But anyway, when he came there, you know, what I had in my mind, that perception of what a 3-star general was all about, I was so misinformed because he taught me so many things. But one of the things that he taught me was not to ask questions, but to ask the right questions. Anybody ever met Mr. Red Brick Wall? Anybody? Hopefully I'm not the only one. Okay, good. You know, the red brick wall can be frustrating, right? And sometimes you may enter a period of your life, personal life or professional life, where you feel like all I'm doing is beating my head up against a red brick wall. If you have children, you probably feel like that daily. But when that happens, there are opportunities that if we're not listening, we miss. You know, feedback is a gift when that happens. Growth is optional. Choose growth, because people are always going to tell you what they think. And I think it's really important to surround yourself with people, or if you have influence, whether you're in a classroom or in a boardroom or any office, to create a culture whereby the people around you are going to tell you before you hit Mr. Red Brick Wall. Or they're going to help you go through the door. If there is a door and somebody's telling you all you got to do is turn the handle, walk through it. You can always come back out and go beat your head against the wall later. But maybe they've already been there. Maybe they know. You don't have to like them, but listen to, perhaps they may have a pearl of wisdom for you. Feedback is a gift. Growth is optional. Choose growth. You know, I'm going to get on the woman's soapbox. You know, over the course of women's advancement over the years, women have had a difficult time. So when I became a city administrator, there weren't very many women in that arena. When I became the finance director in Columbus, there were only 4 other female finance directors in the state of Georgia. So sometimes you have to look in different places and spaces for people to help you along the way. And there have been a lot of studies, and I did a lot of reading of research that shows that men are generally promoted based on their potential. Okay, what people see that they can be. So I'm really talking to the ladies in the room right now. And women are promoted on their experience. Well, if you haven't had the opportunity to have experience, then it puts us maybe in a catch-22, because you cannot be what you cannot see. So one of the challenges that we as women have is we have to help people see us just like they see men. Is what is that potential that that person has? Because in the end, we're the same. We happen to be a different gender, but we're the same. Never forget, I did an interview. I was the first female city administrator in Roswell, neither here nor there. However, when I did an interview for the paper, the first thing the reporter asked me was, how does it feel to be the first female city administrator? I said, I don't know, because I didn't think about it like that. I happen to have been promoted to city administrator, and I happen to be a female. I never thought about it like that, and I think if you don't think about it like that, it's genderless. We're just all trying to do a job to make the community better. Anybody ever heard of Lieutenant Colonel Rob Waldo? Incredible motivational speaker. And this is his saying, your comfort zone is your danger zone. So just when you reach that goal or achieve that goal or that plateau, sometimes it's really easy to get comfortable because you worked real hard, right? You're tired. You're tired. There's not enough hours in the day. You've studied hard and you achieve that, like, wow, okay, I got it. And it's okay for a night. Get a good night's sleep. But tomorrow, don't be comfortable again. Don't stay in a space where you're comfortable, because it is your danger zone, because then you kind of start going back. He is a decorated fighter pilot, has flown 60-plus missions, combat missions, and he's the author of this book here, Never Fly. It's a New York best-selling book, Never Fly Solo. And he says, quote, you can't reach your highest potential alone. You need wingmen, trusted partners who can help you overcome obstacles, adapt to change, and prepare for success. And he has some wingman core values of integrity, accountability, service, and excellence. Everybody needs a wingman, and I couldn't agree with that more. And sometimes, anybody in here stubborn? So, I'm stubborn to the 10th power. So sometimes those of us that are stubborn, we want to do it ourselves, right? And we really don't want anybody else to tell us how to do it, right? Because we feel like, in all honesty, that we know what's best for us and we know how to do it. And I heard him speak last year, and that was another kind of life lesson learned, that I have an idea about what's good for me, but that I should allow those people to help me, those wingmen. And it makes teams stronger, it makes us stronger. And he does a really good job of making comparisons to his combat missions and about things about the weakest link and helping bring other people up. You know, if you're succeeding, bring other people up and help them along. So if you're a reader, that's a really good one. So I thought about what I might say to myself if I was making some notes about, you know, lessons learned. And so next I want to share with you, these are my notes to my younger self. Things that I wished I had known when I was at Columbus State University. And I've already told you about the first one. Life never works out like you think it will, so just get over it. Bad news does not get better with age. Never, ever, 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 ever. And the truth will always come out. So it's better just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and deal with whatever it is, because it does not get better with age. We've talked about a leadership board of directors. I say choose those folks wisely. Aspire to excellence even on the little things. I wish I had understood this earlier. Even on the little things. Because the difference in mediocre and magnificent is the million of details in between. And I didn't get that till probably about 3 years ago. Learn situational awareness. It is so important because every situation is different, and it's really, really important to know how other people perceive you. Really, really important. Anybody ever done a 360 assessment? Did you learn a lot about yourself when you did it? Learn some things that you probably knew you needed to change? Me too. It was really great. It's where your peers, those you work with, those you work for, who work for you, if you're a supervisor, fill out a series of questions about you, and you get feedback about how they perceive you. You know, are you open to questions? You know, then people asking questions of you. How do you present yourself? Are you helpful? Do you know what you're doing? Do they feel comfortable? Do they trust you as their supervisor? Depending on what role you are in the organization. What would they like to see more of? The thing that I heard from, it hurt my feelings actually, but it was very, very true, but it helped me make some changes in the way that I work. So everybody's busy, right? Your job's busy. Everybody's got their job to do, and they're busy at their desk, and so you don't necessarily have a lot of time to walk around in a city, to go to every building, every park, every fire station, all of that. And the department heads, there were 8 department heads, and the thing that I heard most from them was, while they felt like I supported them and I had their back, they didn't see enough of me outside of like staff meetings. They didn't see me at their office. So I had monthly meetings with each one of them on an individual basis at the time, and they always came to my office because it was convenient, not because I demanded it, because it was convenient, because I was running from one meeting to the next. So my lesson learned was go to them. They never came to my office again unless it was a bad thing. So if anybody came to my office, that was a bad, bad, bad thing. But I always went to them, and that was a great lesson that I learned from that 360 assessment. Discover your leadership style and make it your own, and what I mean by that is, you know, there are all these people out here that are great motivational speakers, they are your mentors, they're the Waldos of the world, all of these folks. And a lot of them, they're very charismatic. And if you're like me, I'm not charismatic. So if I try to emulate that, people are going to know. People know. If you're not genuine, don't you know when people's BSing you? You know that. So if that is your leadership style, it is not going to work. People are not going to. You're not going to get buy-in. I mean, as a leader, the ultimate goal, pardon my French in advance, but the ultimate goal as a leader is to be able to tell somebody to go to hell and then look forward to the trip. And I truly believe that. Never underestimate the value of information. I talked to you about the lesson that I learned about the mop bucket. Be aware of time. I talked about there's never enough time. Be aware of the amount of time that you spend on things. Sometimes I find myself, and you may also, spending time on things that don't really matter. Do you ever find yourself spending like a lot of time doing something, and then you look up and you're like, I spent 2 hours doing that, when you have something bigger to do? But sometimes the reason is because the bigger thing to do takes more brain power and energy. So you have to figure out, how do you slice it up in pieces that you can digest? Because I'm a procrastinator. So if that paper is due, professors, cover your ears. If that paper's due next week, I'm going to know my topic. I'm going to have all my research materials, but I'm not going to dive into it until that week. And that's not the way to do it. So if I know that, then I have to learn little tools and tricks to help myself do that, because I would waste a lot of time. And be a good listener. You know, many times, particularly if you go to work for a local government, which everybody in here is, even the professors, when they retire, they're going to go to work part-time at a local government. I just know it. Because sometimes when people call, citizens, they're not calling to go, hey, how y'all doing at City Hall today? They're calling because they're upset about something. Their taxes went up, their trash hasn't been picked up, their brother got a ticket on the way to work, something happened. And they're not happy. And so many times it's just about, they just want to yell, they just want to vent, they just want to get it out, and then you can figure out, okay, how can I really help them? So it's really important to be a good listener. And you know, people, especially in the South, we talk pretty slow. And so the difference in the amount of words that come out of our mouth and how fast we can hear is more than 1,000 words difference. So what are you doing in between? What are you going to eat? You're thinking, how long is she going to talk so I can get to those snacks out there, go home and watch my program? What I've got to do tonight, I've got to wash clothes, I want to talk to my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my whatever, I got to go to Walmart, all of those things. And so that takes away from whatever the conversation you may or may not have with someone. And that's really important. And that's something that I struggle with, because I'm always thinking, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. And sometimes it's just about being present in that situation. because that person may give you something. They may be coming to you for something, but you may receive something in return that you have no expectation of. Know the topic, do your homework. Nobody likes a know-it-all. Do you like a know-it-all? Anybody ever worked or been around a know-it-all? Like, nobody likes that, and nobody knows everything. If somebody says, well, I know everything, and have you ever been around someone where if you've done X, they've done it to the 10th degree? Everything you've done. If you went to Florida, they went to the Bahamas. If you went for 2 days, they went for 8 days. Nobody likes to be around those people. Anybody know what WCB stands for? WCB. It's an acronym. It's not a local government acronym. Whiny crybaby. Anybody know a whiny crybaby? Nobody likes to work with those people. Do you want to be in a work group as a student with the whiny crybaby? When I was working on my MBA, I had, and I'm not going to call his name, he was the biggest whiny crybaby, and they never do their share of the work, right? There's always an excuse. So I used to have these business cards on it, and it said WCB. And if somebody came to my office with a problem without the solution, I would hand it back to them, tell them they're a whiny crybaby, and ask them to come back to me when they had a solution. Not that they had to solve the complete problem, but if you've got an issue, you're doing the work. You know better than the supervisor probably what the solution would be, and many times the supervisor is appreciative. They just need to help you work through those details, or maybe give you the authority or take that authority to do it. And so they would come back, and I only gave out 5, and I only had one person not bring it back. Only one. Believe in others and develop them. I think this is the most important job that you can have. It is your responsibility to develop other people. And you're sitting there going, well, I'm a student, that doesn't apply to me. Yes, it does. It applies to every single person in this room. Because I believe that is how we lift everyone up. Do you want your community to be better? Sure. Do you want your school to be better? Sure. So the way to do that is, you know something somebody else doesn't know. You know something she doesn't know. You know something she doesn't know. Y'all know a lot, I don't know. So it's really important to share that information and help develop people, not to try to keep people from not achieving their goals, but be a part of that. And then dream. You got to dream. If you don't have dreams, laugh at yourself. Sometimes, you know, you're really busy with life, and I've had to learn this the hard way, is that you got to take time to laugh at yourself. Sometimes people laugh at you, and that's okay too, but you got to be able to laugh. Don't take yourself too seriously. Be a lifelong learner. If you're 150 and you're still living, be a lifelong learner. It is so important, because it is constantly important to be successful, in my opinion, to continually reinvent yourself. There's no flip phones. I used to be a master at the BlackBerry and the flip phone. They're no longer. So technology is what drives change now. So if you hate technology, and I'm not a big technology geek, but you better embrace it and learn it instead of, you know, resisting it. Take the time to celebrate the successes. I don't care if it's you turn that paper in on time, celebrate it. Celebrate it. We spend way too much time worrying about the things that didn't go right instead of celebrating the successes. Whine up, you know what that means? If you're a supervisor, don't whine to the people that work for you. They don't want to hear you be a whiny crybaby. Whine up to your boss. Never whine down. Whine up. Maybe they can help you fix whatever you're whining about, or maybe they can just be the shoulder that you need to lean on or to vent to, because your subordinates are very perceptive about that. Get comfortable with ambiguity. People like black and white. The world is gray, and particularly in local government, that gray area is the sweet spot. That's where the good stuff happens. That's where innovation happens. That's where collaboration happens. And in education, that's where the good stuff is in that gray area. There are rules and regulations. Yes, you have to have a certain GPA. You have to have that to graduate. I get that. But I'm not talking about those types of rules. I'm talking about things where there is room for that. And then at the end of the day, just breathe. That's probably one of the most important ones. Just breathe. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about GMA. This is our mission. I'm not going to read it to you, but we do a lot of advocacy on the behalf of cities. And we're going to talk about some statistics about cities. to help provide them tools and services and resources so they can be successful, because our goal is for every city in the state to be successful. And success looks different ways for different cities. All of them don't want a big bustling downtown, or they don't want a lot of new development, while others of them want, like the city of Atlanta. You know, they're looking for all of those things. So GMA is an old company. You can see there, established in 1933. 56 charter members, 520 member cities. So there's 538 cities in Georgia right now. Anybody know how many new cities were created in Georgia in 2017? Take a guess. 2. City of South Fulton and the city of Stonecrest. You know, everybody wants to be a city now. Why do you think the other cities, so if there's 500 members in GMA and there's 538 cities, why do you think the others aren't a member? Do they not want to be a member? They don't want resources and help? They can't afford it. So they pay membership dues to be a member of GMA, and many of them are small cities. We have, and we're going to talk about the population, but many of them have a single-digit population, so they don't bring in enough revenue to be a member city. But we help those cities out anyway. We are nonpartisan. We don't get into politics. Doesn't matter what party they are or aren't. And at the local level, those are nonpartisan races. Now, they may serve a district, a part of the city, a part of the community, or they may serve at large, but it's nonpartisan. We are a member of the National League of Cities. That's our umbrella. So all the other states that have municipal leagues we participate with, and I'm one of 85 employees. Many of us work out in the field from home or within the cities that we're helping, and then we have an office down on Pryor Street as well. So I want to give you a little information about cities at a glance. I talked about 538. You can see the oldest one, Savannah, and the 2 newest ones there that I have already mentioned. So there's a variety of populations. Look down there in the bottom right-hand corner. Edge Hill is the smallest member city. They have a population of 24 people. It's in northeast Georgia. And then look at Atlanta. They have a population of 472,000. So you can imagine the differences in the issues and challenges that those 2 cities have, right? They're very, very, very different. Those communities are very different. You can look at the skyline of Atlanta compared to, like, this is the highlight in Edge Hill. So when I went to Edge Hill, this was like, you pass this and like, so where's Edge Hill? That's Edge Hill, and there's like some houses. And many of the smaller communities, you know, everybody's basically related. It's just like a family community. There are neighborhoods in Columbus that are bigger than a lot of cities in Georgia. You know, their HOA is bigger, and they have bigger issues to deal with than a mayor and council in some of these little bitty cities, which is really amazing to me. So the total municipal population in Georgia is 4.3 million. 43% of the people in Georgia live in cities. I find that very interesting. So GMA is divided into 12 districts, aligned with the Atlanta Regional Commission districts, and here's kind of the population breakdown. Look at this in the red. 76% of those have a population of under 5,000 people. So that's a lot of things are going on in really, really small communities. 63% of the commercial property in the state is in cities as opposed to an unincorporated county area. 46% of the industrial property is in cities. 67% of jobs in Georgia are within the city limits. That's why some of these more rural communities struggle with workforce development and having a living wage, if you will, job, which that's a really big conversation now, particularly at the Capitol. 8% of state land area is in an incorporated city. That is dwindling as you see these 2 new cities form. Fulton County is the county that I live in with those cities. There are 15 cities there, and there's not any unincorporated area left. Everything's in the city, which is a good thing. So what do you think this is a picture of? This is the business of a city. It's busy, it's noisy, it can be confusing. But all of that really boils down to one thing, and that's customer service. No matter what job you have in a city, it's about customer service. You're delivering services. And all of those, and some cities have different services. Some have more services, some may have less service. So do you think customer service in the public sector, in a city or a county, is different than in the private sector? Do you think it's different? No, yes? No? They're all customers, right? I do believe there's one difference, and that is, I'll call it the 3 Ps. It's the policies. Governments have a lot of policies and rules and regulations that a private business doesn't have. If the grocery store wants to go up on a loaf of bread, they can. If a city wants to go up on a service, then there has to be either a vote of the mayor and council or perhaps a vote of the citizens. So those are the differences. The people are different in that if you don't like the TV that you get at Best Buy, you can go somewhere else and get a TV, right? You can't necessarily go somewhere else and get water from your city. If you live in a city, now you can move. But many times those services are a monopoly. And then the most important one is the politics. Politics. There's politics in cities. You can't get away from it. And I think those are the differences. So just right quickly as I wrap up, more and more there are, leaders are inundated with information and the need to make decisions very quickly. And that's why it's so important to know that we can't make decisions individually very easily anymore. It takes more of a team effort because we have to synthesize and analyze all that information. And, geese figured it out a long time before we did. And so everybody knows about the Canadian geese that migrate every year and they fly in a V formation so that they can help out. And that the lead goose certainly is breaking that air force first and exerting the most energy. When they get tired, they drop back, just like on a team. And if companies and businesses organize themselves much like this, I think they would be more successful. They would communicate better and they would take care of their own better because each one is lifting the other one up. So I believe this is the organization chart of the future, and you'll see the credit here to Dr. Bob Johansson. He's the author of the New Leadership Literacies. Who in the organization is in the best position to make which decision at what time? I believe that's how it will work. It's not going to be this hierarchy of the person in charge, the president, and all these people under it. It's going to be who has the skills, who has the resources, at what time. And so that's his depiction of what it will look like in the future. And he talks about how businesses must be prepared. So I this is the International City County Management Association, did a poll of what do you foresee as your greatest challenge in the coming year? And cities that responded, 170 or so of them said workforce recruitment, retention, and development, which is very true. Economic issues related to tax reform, population, public safety, law enforcement, disruptive technologies, and preparing and coping with natural disasters. So there are many, many jobs within that someone could do and be involved in a city. So we at GMA said, well, what are your capital needs? Because the biggest issue cities have is what? They don't have enough money to do what they need to do. So there's $11.2 billion of needs across the state of Georgia right now that have been told to us between 2018 and 2022. So one of the jobs that we have, and certainly the state legislature has, is how are we going to help cities fund these? Are they going to borrow the money? Are we going to raise taxes? What's going to happen? So if you're interested in what's happening in the future, the Alliance for Innovation highlights 44 trends that they believe are categories that will impact local government in the next generation. And they're divided into 4 different categories: resources, technology, demographics, and governance. We're not going to read these, but here's the cards, and you can look at just some of the titles across them, and you can look this up online. But look at the technology of all the things that will be coming that cities will have to deal with policy-wise. Lots and lots in technology. Demographics, lots and lots of things. And then governance, particularly with civic engagement. People are very engaged. So what's next? I don't know, but you are going to have to be the ones to figure it out. So I encourage you to, 1, go to work for a local government or city or county. 2, if you don't want to go to work for a local city or county, then be involved in your community. Help be a part of the dialogue and the conversation to help your city or your county make good decisions for the future. Thank you very much.